what Americans need to understand is transnational repression is happening here at home, right? We have to make sure that this is still a place where dictators cannot export their fear and target people. I want to protect people. I also want to bring a different voice. I feel like DC is very disconnected from the average American. It's not just about productivity, right? And that is one of the problems that we have here in the United States is that we work, even multiple jobs, and yet our quality of life is still not that high. I don't want to listen necessarily to a lobbyist that is bringing forward an idea that's specifically just for their industry and their specific client. We know that our immigration system has been broken for a long time, decades, right? And not one person can change it. It has to be, again, more of a robust discussion. My goal has always been to protect our medical, healthcare across the board, our education, our social services, retirement, disability, education, for all, if you will.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਯੂਐਸਏ ਸੁਣਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਾਣਕ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਜੀ ਆਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਤਨਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਗੈਸਟ ਨੇ ਸੋ AM FM ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਯੂਐਸਏ ਦੇ AM FM 15 ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਸਾਈਟਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਐਪ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸੈਟਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦਾ ਆਨੰਦ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਆਇਸ਼ਾ ਵਹਾਬ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਦੀ 14ਵੀਂ ਕਾਂਗਰੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਉਹ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਆਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਆਇਸ਼ਾ ਵਹਾਬ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Aisha, yeah, welcome. Dr. Aisha Wahab is running for the Congress. She is currently a California state senator from 10 districts since 2022, representing Hayward, Union City, Newark, Fremont, Milpitas, Sunnyvale, San Jose, and Santa Clara. Interestingly, she's a member of Democratic Party and the first Muslim and Afghan American elected to the California State Senate. She's previously served as Hayward City Council from 2018 to 2012. Now she's running in the election in the 14th congressional district. So the seat is, she planned to succeed Eric Swalwell, who was running for governor, a progressive advocate with a background in foster care and city council. She planned to focus on affordable housing, healthcare access, and workers' rights. So once again, welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start the show. Tell us about yourself. This is the first time you'll be, our Punjabi Radio USA listeners will be listening to you. Let's spend a few minutes just by yourself. Talk about yourself, who you are, a quick intro, and then we're gonna go into what are you planning to do different in the Congress.
Thank you. First and foremost, I really want to thank you for having me. I want to thank the Punjabi community just for being open-minded to our candidacy. I'm Aisha Wahab. I'm running for Congress. I'm very proud to represent the district already as the state senator. We have a very large, specifically Punjabi population. And the goal has always been to help the poorest people, right? I personally grew up in the foster care system. I know what it's like to kind of feel like the other, a little lost, a little bit like you don't belong, and a little bit more targeted or ignored, and in both negative ways, right? So, in the Senate, I think you guys have seen some of my work. I have authored a number of different bills that largely protect poor people, vulnerable communities, but also prioritize issues that we care about. So down payment assistance, capping HOA fees, capping insulin costs and healthcare, really trying to allow kids who are in good standing in high school automatically get enrolled or in admissions to our CSU systems, making sure that as small business owners that we have criminalized organized retail theft, right? So when you see those smash and grabs, we have made sure that that is illegal. So we've done a lot of different work in the state Senate. I'm hoping to do the same type of work in Congress. I want to protect people. I also want to bring a different voice. I feel like DC is very disconnected from the average American. And at times, I know that, when I work with my colleagues, the Bay Area is very different than the rest of California, let alone, middle America or anywhere else. So,
Right.
I want to just have patience, work with people, but again, prioritize defending our rights, protecting people, and making our future, a future that we can all thrive in.
Right, right. So you've been pretty popular with the California Senate. Of course, you're gonna do the same good work going to the Washington D.C. and talking about the workers' right. You've been endorsed by the workers' organization,
Yeah.
probably the only candidate in this district. Um, so when you talk about the disconnect, can you shed a little bit more light on what disconnects are you referring to?
Yeah, we know that, for example, when we're talking about AI and automation and all the new technologies, a lot of people are worried about their jobs,
Yeah.
right? And I personally, in the past, have worked in technology before I became a state senator, and I know how quickly technology can move, but policy doesn't always move as fast. And we need to be able to protect people as best as possible. One, we want to make sure people are paid fairly. Two, we want to make sure technology is used as a tool to support the work of the people, but not necessarily replace them, right? We also want to make sure that technology has the guardrails in place. For example, in California, if you were to get denied healthcare coverage for some issue that's happening in your life, we want to make sure a human being is making those decisions, right? Those are life and death decisions, and I understand that with AI, machine learning, and a lot of the data that is being collected, we can be denied these basic rights because the data clearly shows that maybe we're highly susceptible to some illness. I want to protect people and ensure that we have basic fundamental rights when we're talking about healthcare, when we're talking about education, when we're talking about jobs, regardless of how technology changes.
Okay. All right. So talking about AI a little bit, not going into a lot of detail. So it's a good idea to have a human in the loop. Myself with a technology background. When you talk about the fear systems, human in the loop, but y- it- yeah, the district that you're gonna represent is mostly technical folks live here. All the technology starts from the Silicon Valley, and it's big in AI. So, what are the few things that you will do to make sure that all the things that you just talked about, human in the loop and the other things, do not stop the technology or Silicon Valley being the way it is? You don't obstruct the way the competition because we are in direct competition with
Yeah, it
China.
does not. Having safeguards and protections for regular people does not interrupt innovation in any way. And businesses that state that are not prioritizing the real life human cost, right? So, for example, how many accidents have we seen on the roads where people are using their self-driving vehicle, right? We see a lot in on 880, right?
Yeah.
Even with the big rigs, right? For example, a lot of Punjabis. Will drive big rigs. These
Right.
are thousands upon thousands of pounds of heavy machinery, right? And you had a couple of accidents in the past year or two that really made people talk about, who should drive, how should they drive, things like that. But a human being should be very much part of the process to ensure that other people, it's not just about productivity, right? And that is one of the problems that we have here in the United States is that we work, 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 even multiple jobs, and yet our quality of life is still not that high, right?
Right.
And so my district in California is the largest manufacturing district in the state of California, right? Fremont alone has over 1,000 businesses. I'm never going to try to stifle their innovation and their competition, and also reshoring jobs back to the United States, which is a priority for me. But being able to say, hey, a human being needs to be there. Hey, that this has to be utilized as a tool. Hey, just because you have this tool doesn't mean you're going to lay off 1,000 people,
Hmm.
right? Those are the safeguards I care about, especially as these corporations make such significant profit,
Right.
net profit in particular. Some of them have more net profit in their banks than the entire GDP of several other countries, right? So there's a balancing act to strike. And again, we need to prioritize. If we're the fourth largest economy in the world, California, we
That's
should
right.
also have the best quality of life in the world, right? But that's not always the case. So I really want to balance that out. I think, in my conversations with folks that represent DC, not everybody comes from a tech background, not everybody comes from the Bay Area. They are largely scared of their own jobs and, what is happening in middle America and many, many different states. I want to understand that too, right? So I work with my Republican colleagues to really understand their district as well, because like I said, we're sometimes in our Bay Area bubble.
Yeah.
And at the same time, for example, in this congressional district, we have Lawrence Livermore Labs. It's several hundred scientists that when we're talking about data centers, I don't want to listen necessarily to a lobbyist that is bringing forward an idea that's specifically just for their industry and their specific client. I want to listen to the thought leaders that can tell us how can we utilize this innovation, this industry, and this tool for the next 10, 20, 50 years to make America literally competitive with all other nations in the world, right? That is how I view policymaking versus, this fear mongering of, oh, it's going to take jobs or you're going to stifle innovation. And both of them are fear mongering.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's talk about immigration policies, which is apparently a political football in Washington these days, especially in the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on that overall immigration? And of course, when you talk about immigration, it's a pretty wider topic. But what are the few things that you will focus if given a chance to Washington?
Definitely. So immigration is a topic that is often talked about regarding our Latino brothers and sisters that come from our southern border. And that is not immigration here in the United States. And I want to be very clear about that. My district is an Asian majority district, right? My Senate district. And I often have to remind my colleagues in the Senate, I have every type of immigration status, right? We have the H-1B visas, we have asylum seekers, we have refugees, we have green card holders, we have EB-2, EB-5, so many different types of immigration statuses, even folks that are DACA, folks that are undocumented, folks that have been born here for several generations. So I really want to bring light to what is exactly happening. The example I can give you is H-1B visas, right?
Right.
We know that our immigration system has been broken for a long time, decades, right? And it's, not one person can change it. It has to be, again, more of a robust discussion. The H-1B visa, and I tell this to a lot of constituents, if we know that they are paid less and they are deeply worked, right, in a lot of these tech companies, and, when I ask these companies in my district, how many H-1B visas employees do you guys have? And they will say 10 to 15%. Right? 10 to 15% is a good chunk of their employment, right?
Yeah.
But when they want to lay off, the quickest layoff is the H-1B visa, right? It's the easiest, it's the fastest, and H-1B visa recipients typically don't have a lot of recourse to be able to navigate the system. And I flag to everybody, they have 60 days to find another job with an employer that will sponsor them through the immigration process. That is very hard. Within 60 days, after that 60 days, they become technically undocumented and they become an illegal immigrant, right? As
Right.
people like to call it. So I want to put a human aspect to it because this is far more crucial than I think people understand. And at the same time, it raises a lot of questions like, what are we doing with our immigration status? Why are we not training our next generation of leaders and, technologists and doctors and nurses and so much more? So to me, it's a domino effect of what is wrong and what is happening in this country. But also, I want to be very clear. We have to treat our immigrant community members as human beings. They all have lives. They all have put so much effort into the United States, coming here, leaving their families abroad. and so much more. So I want to bring a human lens to this and also talk about it's not just the documented, undocumented, right? Because it's not fair. So what I would like to do is, again, talk to a lot of different thought leaders. You cannot solve this problem overnight. I think a lot of people try to pick one or two issues, and the reality is we need to go far more deeper into the immigration process as a whole. And even this, $500,000 gold Trump card, right? So people can buy their way here, but the poorest people, the asylum seekers, the refugees, they're stuck, right? Based on ethnicity or country of origin. The Muslim nations are completely banned from coming here, right? Whether it's Iran, Afghanistan, or any of the other Muslim nations. So it's a broken system. It's deeply racist, and it's rooted in a significant amount of bigotry that needs to be, a lot more time needs to be taken to adjust this and correct this.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. I have one unique question. Of course, our Bay Area is a little bit different from rest of the California. California is a little bit different from rest of the U.S. There are very unique issues. What is the one issue when you're on campaign trail that you have noticed that you're not aware when you went? I mean, you're representing your Bay Area constituency in Sacramento, that now you plan to take over to Washington. Is like a aha moment kind of thing that has been ignored for a very long time. I know Eric Swalwell was in this constituency for quite a bit of time. But what is the one thing that you think you're going to do or bring that your previous predecessors did not?
I want to say a lot because primarily I grew up differently than him, right? I grew up in the foster care system. I am a woman. I am seen as a relatively young, quote unquote, the other, right? I have a different name, a different religion, a different ethnicity, a different, perspective in so many different ways. And I think that helps shape me in a way that allows me to understand other people's burdens in life and hardships in life. And, I really want to tackle those issues. So I believe, there are Congress members that have been there for almost 2 decades and had 1, 2, 3 bills, right? That's not good enough for me, right? In my very short time in the Senate, I have had well over 28, bills that I've personally authored, and significantly more, but 28 bills that I've co-authored, where 24 were bipartisan, right? And that just shows that I can reach across the aisle and bring our Republican colleagues along. And the majority of my bills are focused on poor people in vulnerable communities. And it is to help them, support them, fund different efforts for them. And the reason why I'm able to bring the Republicans along is because I will have conversations. I will go to their district and understand their issues and help them where I can, because we represent Democrats, Republicans, independents, kids. Even kids aren't voters, right? But we represent them. And I've done the same thing even on Hayward City Council, is to work with everybody. I may not agree with everybody. I think it's well known that if I disagree, I will point blank tell you I will disagree. But I also want to thread the needle where you get a little bit of what you need that I do believe in, and I can also push my issue across the finish line. I've worked on a lot of senior issues. I've worked on a lot of social services issues. I think our communities really struggle with that, especially with the HR 1 bill signed and more deficits to come in the next year. My goal has always been to protect our medical, healthcare across the board, our education, our social services, retirement, disability, education, for all, if you will. So I think that there's a lot to discuss on social services and what we're providing to the American people. And it does not matter what race you are, does not matter what age you are. People rely on those safety nets, right? And foster youth, as a foster youth myself, we don't always have advocates that really, number one, advocate for us, and two, understand the system well enough to make those positive changes, right? And I think for the most part, whether my colleagues agree with me or not, I think that they wholeheartedly know that I try to do the right thing for the most amount of people.
Okay. Thanks for that. Just for our listeners, when you say Aisha Wahab is young, she's January 1987 born. So yes, compared to many politicians that we see around, she is pretty young. So one question about TNR. I have a report from Freedom House that says between 2014 to 2024, there are about 48 governments targeting individuals in many countries. We know we have seen cases in the US as well, China being the top on the list, but then Russia, Turkey, Egypt, and Cambodia follow up to that. India is, of course, in the list. So, what are your thoughts on TNR, and what are the steps you plan to do to stop these transnational repression, including threats and violence?
Definitely. So I think what Americans need to understand is transnational repression is happening here at home, right? Federal prosecutors have clearly stated, for example, there's been a number of different conversations regarding Chinese police stations being operated in New York City that, try to intimidate pro democracy dissidents, that have left China, right? But still have maybe an activist base or whatever the case may be. And they sometimes smuggle the people back. They sometimes will put bounties on these individual activists. And it's not just one country. And I want to be very clear. Many of the more well-developed nations participate this way, right? This is why America must protect due process and representation, asylum seekers, free speech, immigrant communities from these types of governments that silence people even when they are in a different nation like the United States. So I think for me, what I would like to see in the United States and Congress is a couple of different things, right? We need to really tackle the technology being utilized, which is a lot of spyware and data abuses. We need to protect the protests of students on campuses. We need to really protect victims who say that they are fleeing and are genuine asylum seekers. And obviously, their cases have to be vetted. We also need to fund a lot of the services that really support those particular individuals. Due process is being completely stripped away when we're talking about our immigrant population here. Even the deportations, if you really want to highlight this, the folks that are being deported to, for example, El Salvador, this is absolutely wrong because these sites outside of our borders operate completely independently of the United States oversight and jurisdiction. And that is something that, for example, there are elected officials that very deeply support that. I don't, because at the end of the day, all of these individuals that have chosen to come to the United States needs to be vetted fully here in the United States. Many innocent people are taken. And, why are they being put in these black sites, right? So I have a lot of concern about how we have been handling things and how we have allowed for other nations to participate in an effort for transnational repression, regardless of the nation. But transnational repression is happening here, and Congress must pass some type of national strategy to stop it, right? Whether it's stronger penalties, better FBI, coordination, protections, and so much more. So we have to make sure that this is still a place where dictators cannot export their fear and target people.
Okay, thanks for that. And my last question, what are a few words that you want to say to Punjabi Sikh Indian community who are listening to us today?
Definitely. One, I really just want to appreciate all of you guys. I have grown up in this community. I know many of you guys, and so many of you guys are friends and loved ones, love your music, love your culture. And I really just want to represent your community as best as I can. So I'm available and I am going to be working hard for all of us.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Aisha Wahab. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we're talking to Dr. Aisha Wahab ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਲੀਫੋਰਨੀਆ ਦੀ 14ਵੀਂ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੋਣ ਲੜਦੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਤੇ ਐਰਿਕ ਸਵੈਲਵਾਲ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਕਸੀਡ ਕਰਨਗੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਦੀ ਚੋਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੀਟ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਉਹ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਵੈਸੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ